Some players are known for their skill, talent, and hard work, but others are built differently. They're scary monsters on the pitch, and in some cases represent the darker side of the Premier League because of their bad boy persona. These are some of the toughest footballers in the English Premier League history. John Terry wasn't necessarily known for being a hard man in the traditional sense because you didn't see him involved in too many scraps on the pitch. But make no mistake, this guy was as tough as they come. For almost 2 decades at Chelsea, he never shied away from tackles, and for the most part, no one wanted to mess with him in a physical battle. Terry stood out for his defensive abilities, he excelled in one-on-one situations, and was effective in set-piece situations. On top of that, he was strong in the air, a tough tackler, had the best positioning, and was definitely a great leader. He was the type of player who could put his life on the line for the team. Terry had a couple of indiscretions on the pitch, which threatened to tarnish his legacy. But even at that, many still consider the Englishman to be one of the greatest center backs in the EPL. If he had slightly more pace, we could be talking about one of the best footballers of all time. Terry's disciplinary record and his 492 games for Chelsea was 69 yellow cards and 6 red cards. But this next player was a problem for everyone, including his team. Diego Costa played for Chelsea from 2014 to 2017, and although he scored 52 goals in the league and won 2 titles, we all knew him for something else. Costa was a pantomime villain. He loved to piss everyone off and was always hungry to get into a fight with anyone. Interestingly, Costa was never shown a red card during a Premier League game, but he was booked 26 times in 89 games. But here's the catch. For all his antics, many pundits and former footballers think that Diego Costa wasn't tough. It was just an act. According to Micah Richards, it was all a facade because he once confronted Costa in the tunnel, but Costa wanted no smoke. Alan Shearer also added that Costa was more of a pest and a nuisance, and he simply irritated everyone. Shearer, who was a hard man in his own right, doesn't believe that Costa deserves a mention. But how about we talk about another footballer who everyone agrees was one tough blow? We know Nemanja Vidic as one of the best center backs in the history of the Premier League. The Serbian international formed a solid partnership with Rio Ferdinand at the heart of the defense for Manchester United. The thing that stood out about Vidic was his hard tackling and aerial strength. He was your typical no-nonsense enforcer at the back for the most part. However, he lost his head and lunged at opponents with reckless tackles on a few occasions. Although he wasn't necessarily ill-tempered, Vidic could smash anyone if he wanted to, which is why we saw tough players backing off when they had a bone to pick with him. Here's a case in point with Balotelli back in 2011. Vidic always kept things simple, knowing he wasn't always great on the ball. But he did the most important things, put in all the hard yards, and commanded the respect of everyone. But it was a different case for this next player. Big Dunk was every Evertonian's dream. Always in the thick of it, Duncan Ferguson is arguably football's biggest hard man. While he was still earning his corn at Rangers, Ferguson had already received a 3-month prison sentence for an assault on Wraith Rovers' John McStay. Ferguson was so tough that he confronted 2 burglars in 2001 and beat the living daylights out of one of them. The burglar spent 3 days in the hospital before being sentenced to 15 months in jail. And what about the time Ferguson grabbed Jimmy Bullard by the neck after getting sent off in 2006? Anyone who came across Ferguson was left terrified because the English Premier League had not seen anyone quite like him. The 6'4" striker was a menace on the pitch, and even the other hard men ran for their lives. Roy Keane wanted no smoke. Jaap Stam walked away with 8 red cards and 36 yellow cards. Ferguson's disciplinary record in the EPL speaks for itself. But despite his short fuse, fans adored Duncan the Disorderly for his passion and commitment to the game. And for that same reason, Arsenal fans adore this next player. Thierry Henry, Vieira, and Dennis Bergkamp might have gotten all the accolades, but Martin Keown was the guy who could pull a team through thick and thin in must-win games. The formidable defender was Arsenal's battering ram during the club's most successful stint, as he formed a formidable partnership with Tony Adams at the heart of the defense. Whether it was chasing after Ruud van Nistelrooy at the Battle of Old Trafford, or deciding to play through the pain barrier after being elbowed in the head by Alan Shearer, Keown was as tough as they came. 82 yellow cards and 9 red cards during his club playing days definitely count for something. Some fans argue that Keown is the most formidable player to have played for Arsenal. Up next is Kevin Muscat. According to Peter Crouch, Kevin Muscat was the only player he was scared of during his career. That dude was literally a lunatic on the pitch and was considered one of the dirtiest footballers that English football has ever seen. The news headlines describe Muscat as the most hated man in football because of the numerous incidents he was involved in during his career. I mean, take a look at these moments of madness.
Up and under, he's gone way over the ball. That is dangerous for Muscat. Adrian Zara very lucky not to get hurt in that exchange. We're not sure if he is not hurt, he's still down. Let's have a look.
During his 19-year football career, Muscat received 123 yellow cards and 12 reds. Let's talk about a player who etched his name in the history books despite spending only 3 seasons in the EPL. When Jaap Stam popped up at Manchester United, strikers knew they were in for a long day at the office. He was the backbone of the United defense that saw them win 3 consecutive league titles and the Champions League treble in 1999. Stam had an uneasy stare that was enough to strike fear into any opponent, so nobody messed with the Dutchman. Stam was your typical hard-tackling, no-nonsense defender who wouldn't give you an inch. He was fast, strong in the air, and never tried to do too much. But the best part about Stam was that he kept things classy on and off the pitch. Unlike this next guy, Joey Barton was never far away from trouble on and off the pitch. Despite not being physically imposing, opponents counted their lucky stars to come away from a duel with him unscathed because of his ultra-aggressive style of play. It sometimes felt like Barton had a screw loose. We saw him deliberately knee Sergio Aguero after being sent off against Manchester City with QPR in 2012. Barton was charged with violent conduct 3 times by the FA in his playing career, which is what his disciplinary record looked like. Off the pitch, Barton was convicted twice for violent charges. He once drove his car into a pedestrian at 2 a.m. in the Liverpool city centre and served 77 days in prison for his actions in 2008. He also assaulted his own teammate Ousmane Dobo. Barton has faced charges of domestic violence and is definitely not a fan favorite. But here's an interesting pick for the next spot. Christian Romero is a man on the edge. Romero's brilliance for Tottenham has sometimes come at a cost. When it comes to ability, there are no questions about Romero's quality as an elite center back. He's an aggressive, tough tackling, and dominant defender, but he has a tendency to lose his head at times. You see him winding up opponents, throwing himself in a scuffle, or doing something dangerous that might ultimately cost the team. Romero deserves to be on this list, especially considering that he's playing in an era far less forgiving of on-field indiscretions than those enjoyed by some of the other tough guys that we've talked about. And then we have Cattermole, who was also tough in his own right. The midfielder had a lengthy disciplinary record on and off the pitch. In December 2008, Cattermole was given a 3-year pub ban across the borough of Stockton and was subsequently added to the Pub Watch blacklist of troublemakers. Cattermole was once arrested for damaging 5 cars on the street in Newcastle. On the pitch, Cattermole had an edgy behavior. Some fans saw him as a red card waiting to happen. In his 12 seasons split across Middlesbrough, Wigan, and Sunderland in the Premier League, Cattermole accumulated 88 yellow cards, 7 red cards, and 422 fouls in only 271 appearances. But this next player was built differently. Julian was a tough tackler at West Ham who never shied away from having a go at opponents, even if it meant getting an early shower. Dix earned the Terminator as a nickname because of how crazy he was. He was named the Player of the Year at West Ham 4 different times. When Dix wasn't blasting unstoppable penalties past goalkeepers, he was probably gearing up for a knee-high challenge. Dix was sent off 9 times during his career, and he has repeatedly said that he wouldn't survive the modern era of football because of how he played back in the day. But which one of these guys is your favorite tough footballer?